This is Firebase. I'm your host, Gary French. Glad you're with us tonight. On tonight's show, I'm going to be speaking with a recently elected man from eastern Jefferson County in Kentucky who decided to take the plunge and run for office. He's the kind of guy that just in the short, I've read his bio, read his website, read some information. And on tonight's show, friends, in full disclosure, this is the first time I've met with him. But let me tell you from what I've read, here's a man that saw a need and just felt compelled to do something about it. Do you remember how your dad used to say America's going to hell in a handbasket? Well, folks, sometimes it feels that way, doesn't it? Especially under the current Marxist leftist regime that we have that seems to be running rampant like a wildfire across the United States of America. And sadly, even in Kentucky at different times. When we have a supermajority of conservative-leaning people, generally the GOP, you would think that Kentucky would have a greater access to conservative ideals and greater victories, but yet that doesn't seem to be the case. Over in Jefferson County, which has always seemed to me like a bastion for liberal thinking and policies, here's a man that did one thing that I've been encouraging our audience for over a year: get involved. Welcome this evening to newly elected Representative John Hodgson. John, welcome to tonight's show.
Thank you, Gary. Great to be with you.
You know, I like people's backstories. I like how people decide, you know. I always jokingly say it like that great theologian from that Western television show, Bonanza. Hoss Cartwright would look at Pa and would say, "Dadgummit, Pa, somebody's got to do something." And now that I think about it, you're pretty good size. We could call you Hoss if we wanted to. But
I've been called Hoss before. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I tell you what. You know what? You do have sort of a resemblance there. Take the glasses off, get one of those big hats to put on.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go. Yeah. Like the beard, like the chin and the mustache. Makes me think of a man that I know that is highly intelligent, super good looking. Oh, wait a minute. I see him when I look in the mirror. Let's get back to something serious here. I want you to tell our audience about your journey into politics. I mean, you're a former pilot with UPS, and what got you into this road to say, I think I want to be involved and receive abuse from people?
Yes, sir. Well, I was a engineering management at UPS. I was not a pilot, but I did grow up the son of two military pilots in Texas. They were both World War II era pilots, and I had the opportunity to shake Richard Nixon's hand when I was 7 years old, and that kind of set me off with an interest in presidential politics probably most 7-year-old kids don't have. And I suffered on through the Carter years and, the disgrace of America and the stagflation and all those things and despair, and had to get my draft card under Jimmy Carter, and that was alarming to me. And I was so thrilled to be able to cast my first ever vote for Ronald Reagan.
That's awesome.
That gave me some hope. And the people at the poll actually got me involved that night after casting my vote to be a precinct delegate, and got involved in the political process. They were very, very generous with their time. And from that time on, of course, when Reagan was in charge, America was great. We were prosperous. We were respected in the world. And frankly, I guess I went to sleep a little bit like everybody else did, confident that Ronnie was at the helm. And, I made money. I had a career. I raised a family. And I didn't really wake up to, in a tangible way, the terrible things going on in American politics until Barack Obama had been in office for a few months. And he began to radically remake the United States of America, to turn a phrase, as he did. And I was in downtown Louisville on tax day of 2009. And that was the birthday of the Tea Party. So I became involved with Rand Paul and a bunch of other local folks in the Tea Party. A few years later, I became president of the Louisville Tea Party, got involved in that organization, and came to have my eyes opened by what I was studying, but also by the people that I was associating with and information and resources that they would feed to me. I worked and helped Rand Paul's campaign. A couple of years later, I got involved with Thomas Massey as a brand new guy coming in. Helped Thomas Massey to get elected, and he was my congressman for a dozen years, and we've become close friends. And then after that, I worked with Matt Bevin it was challenging Mitch McConnell for the senatorial nomination in 2014. So worked in that election, came up a bit short, but met some great people, learned a lot about the true nature of politics. But I was doing all this during my 32-year career at UPS. So my political activities were nights and weekends and vacations. UPS is a pretty intense place, so I typically would be on call 24 hours a day, and I had operations I was responsible for around the world, and so it was hard squeezing things in around the margins, but I did it, and made a significant decision in December of 2015 when Matt Bevin got elected governor, and he asked me to come on board and be his operations manager in his administration. So I worked things out with UPS to retire, and I had enjoyed about 12 hours of retirement and a piece of cake, and then I went on full time with state government, working directly for Governor Matt Bevin for 4 years.
John, so you made mention that during the years of after after Nixon and Ronald Reagan, and then you fell asleep, as did a lot of people, and you awakened under Barack Obama. My thought was you awakened from a slumber to a nightmare.
Yeah,
and having to live through that. And then you made mention about 2009, the Tea Party. I went downtown to that event, and there was a lot of people that were there. And the thing that I saw is the news media, the normal news media, and that's in Louisville, barely reported that as a blip. That was poor news coverage. And that told me that the news media, even the local news media and some of the local anchors, lie. They don't report conservative events. And I think what a tragedy. And then for you to transition to work with Matt Bevin, which I thought was a great administration and did accomplished a lot of good things. He stepped on his toes a couple of times when he didn't necessarily have to. But I think it was some great years. But now you're transitioning. Say, you know what? You've worked behind the scenes. You've worked helping other people to get into office. Was there one deciding factor, one important event, an epiphany of something that just says, I just need to get involved?
Well, I guess on leaving Frankfurt in 2019, a lot of us were kind of tired and beat up from that experience. And
no doubt,
I recharged my batteries by got in the PhD program at Liberty University for about a year, studying natural law and the Constitution. And I really enjoyed that, but I decided after about a year that being an academic wasn't for me, and that was when Trump was unelected, if you will, and I began to see that there was a crisis in America, and I saw institutions that I previously had trust in immediately start turning and doing. I had friends that I've known for 40 and 50 years that were starting to suppress thought on Facebook. They would jump on you like a pack of wolves if you said something that they disagreed with, and I would call it this gaslighting effect, where they try to just have all your friends and associates jump on you and say, no, that's not right. You're crazy. You can't say that. And that was very alarming to me. That suppression of evidence, the suppression of free dialogue.
Yeah, I think that's a great insight, and it's a powerful observation that we've got a lot of people that are wanting. I encounter people all the time. I've yet to meet anyone who would knowingly tell me that they voted for Bashir or they voted for Biden.
Yes.
And I have a dear friend of mine. He's a lifelong Democrat. His wife is a Republican, and he's a Democrat because his dad was. And he one time he said, this is probably 2 years ago, he says, I'm ashamed to be a Democrat because they're standing against all of my Christian values. And he jokingly told me, he says, my wife, who's a lifelong Republican, says, honey, you're going to hell because you're believing the wrong things. And he was telling it as a joke. And that's not even to imply Democrats are going to hell. The only ones that head in that direction are those who don't know Jesus Christ as their Savior. But was there that epiphany for you that says politicians, both Democrats and Republicans, just aren't getting the job done?
Well, certainly I had seen from being inside the belly of the beast for 4 years in Frankfurt, if you will. I would be at events where I would see what actually went on. And then 15 minutes later, I'd look at the news report of that event, and I thought, holy cow, we're experiencing a biased press were experiencing suppression. And I don't see these politicians here calling this out. They were kind of playing along with the media, playing for the popular vote. And I came to realize that, the Walter Cronkite we grew up with and trusted, doesn't exist anymore. You can't trust what you see on the news. And a lot of times I found that politicians were concerned about their next election, retaining their office, getting reelected, and not wanting to do or say anything unpopular, even if it was something that they believed was important. And as Andy Bashir began his tyrannical rampage via executive order, telling us we couldn't go to church on Easter, we couldn't cross state lines, we couldn't assemble peaceably, closing down businesses, all these things. I watched a lot of politicians stand by silently, and some told me privately, said he's just too popular right now. People like what he's doing. We're not going to say anything against him. So I was in the very first group of people out there on the Capitol lawn protesting against those illegal closures. I helped participate in the lawsuits that went to federal court, and got him slapped down by a federal judge on some of his unconstitutional efforts. And so you kind of found out who your friends were during that time when the chips were really down, who was willing to stand for freedom and who was not.
Awesome. Folks, we're talking with newly elected representative from Eastern Jefferson County, John Hodgson. Some interesting stuff. Stay tuned. We'll be right back after this short break. Welcome back, folks. Glad you decided to stick around talking this evening with Representative John Hodgson. And we've talked about his journey into politics. I love his journey. It's almost like a personal testimony of having been involved. I love the fact that he shook Richard Nixon's hand. I'm going to have to shake his hand one day to see if I get the same vibes out of that. And he said he got involved, voted for Ronald Reagan. And I love that fact right there. And one of the things that he said, he had been asleep at the wheel almost, and he awakened under Barack Obama, and he's been involved with the Tea Party and worked diligently with a dear friend of mine, Thomas Massey, and was with Matt Bevin in his administration. John, I want to go very quickly over two or three things if we have time. We've got about 9 minutes before our next break. From your perspective right now, what do you see as some of the big issues that's confronting Kentucky and the United States?
I think the biggest issues, both nationally and at the state level, revolve around the taking of our God-given constitutional rights. Governments instituted by men are there to safeguard our rights, not to usurp them. And I think that has happened dramatically, especially at the federal level. I think in Kentucky, it happened in a very dramatic way in 2020 and 2021. I think we pushed back. We pushed back with the courts. We pushed back eventually with the legislature. And I think Andy Bashir has recoiled a little bit from that, and now he recommends things instead of demanding them, decreeing them. But we have seen that someone with that authoritarian, totalitarian bent will take all the power that they can get away with, and it's up to we the people to stand up to those things. I think
that's true.
I think we as citizens have to stand up. I think we as a state eventually are going to have to stand up to the federal government under the auspices of the 10th Amendment and say, you are violating our constitutional rights as a state. We are not going to tolerate this. We're not going to play this game anymore. And,
what you comment, and I love the fact that you referenced, the Bill of Rights, the 10th Amendment, about the autonomy of the individual states, and that we only give to the federal government those powers that are not explicitly detailed in the Constitution. And people don't realize that. Let's back that up. We as citizens give authority to the local government. The local government gives authority to the county government. The county government gives authority to the state government. And it really is we the people. I think one of the things that concerns me the most is some people say, well, what can I do? I'm not like this John Hodgson that had all these contacts and connections and I ran for office and got elected. I'm just running a grocery store. I'm just trying to mind my own business, but things have got to change. What words can you give to them to encourage them?
Well, the backbone of our democratic republic here is citizens who will be involved. Alexis de Tocqueville in the 1840s went through America and was amazed at how citizens were involved in everything. So they had committees for everything, nonprofit groups, citizen organizations were doing things that in Europe for hundreds of years had been handled by the government. We lost that somewhere along the line, perhaps a little while after World War II. And I think people in our prosperity and peace, just like I say, fell asleep. The people
Yeah.
need to be on their neighborhood board. They need to be on the PTA. They need to maybe run for school board. They need absolutely need to work every election they can.
Yeah.
Plan a vacation
Yeah.
day, take it off, work the election. It's up to
Yeah.
$300 now to work that day. And of course, vote, but get involved with candidates. Find the person that you agree with early in the primary process. Help them, work with them, give them money, introduce them, and that you have just an outsized influence in primaries.
Those are great words, and I really agree with that. We often look at the old TV shows, Little House on the Prairie, and we see
Yeah,
the one room schoolhouse where all the kids, regardless of the ages, and back in the 1800s, that's when they started the Department of Education, and I think under Richard Nixon, it became a cabinet position
Carter.
under Carter.
Yep.
Okay, and I knew it was in the 70s. One of the worst presidents in our history, and only surpassed by Barack Obama and now Joe Biden.
Yep.
And so we transitioned. One of the tenets back in the 1800s of that education department was to transition away from the one room schoolhouse and to segregate kids according to a Marxist value of kids by ages and grading. And let's just fast forward to 2022. We have kids being taught according to Common Core, or they're only being educated to pass a test. And it's just, I don't know, it's just lunacy. And a friend of mine would say, we end up with kids today that are dumber than a hammer. And another guy says they have the IQ of a sweet potato. And while that can be humorous, tragically, it's not far from it. And right now, did you see this from the American Federation of Teachers? A union, a very pro-Marxist, anti-American union, is pushing for a student instruction card, which is their gender identification. Jonathan, let's put that up on the screen so that our audience can see that. And folks, if you look at it, it has the government name on that, and we're assuming, Representative Hodgson and I were assuming that maybe is the birth name. And what would you like to be called in class, and pronunciation tips, and can I call you this name outside of class? And really what is going down is that it's pushing for a gender identity transformation of where the school can teach. I don't know what it is, John. I just like maybe the teachers can indoctrinate the kids to go. I don't know. I'm just dumbfounded by this. They get to pick their own gender and everything. Is there? And I know people are going to say this, so I'm just going to ask the question: is there a danger to all this?
Absolutely, there is a danger to that. I mean, I grew up around farm animals, and gender confusion was just not a thing out on out on the farm. You pretty much know whose boy was a girl.
I love it. I love it.
I think thousands of years, people all over the world grew up like that. And it's only in this modern age where people are insulated from that sort of thing, where somebody comes up with the lunatic idea that you can just decide what gender you are sometime later. Your chromosomes in every cell of your body don't matter. Your genitalia don't matter. You can just decide, what you are at some point, and then change your mind back later. It's okay. It's fluid, and that is the big lie. And I think that's a tragic thing to put in front of kids that do not have fully developed frontal lobes yet. They're not capable of making great decisions for themselves. Heck, we don't let them drive. We don't let them join the army. We don't let them sign contracts. We don't let them get tattoos. But you can pick your gender in third grade.
Yeah, yeah. When you're 12 years old, you can pick your gender, and they're wanting to push the legal voting age to 16, and it's just absolutely insane on steroids, as some people would say. Yeah, we've got people that are really pushing for this inclusive, whatever gender you want to be. The CDC had a recent announcement putting warnings out for the puberty blocking drugs that they're wanting to inject into kids. And let me tell you, folks, when you allow your children to say, I'm going to transition to another gender or another sex or whatever it is that they're wanting to do, and then they have surgery and you allow them to do that, I think that's the greatest form of child abuse by allowing that to happen. Is there anything, anything there, Congressman, that you think the people of Kentucky can do? Because I know that woke agenda is in Jefferson County. I know it.
I think the big thing is that we have to make sure everybody understands whose children they are and who has say over what they get taught and how they get indoctrinated. They are the parents' children. They are not.
Amen. You're right for that.
And there's a huge issue in the Virginia gubernatorial election, and what the Democrat candidate for governor actually came out and said, these are our kids. We'll decide. Uh, our kids being the government's kids. We the government, we the school system will decide what they get taught. You parents are not allowed to have any input or to even know. And
Personally, I'm ready to abolish the Department of Education. I'm ready to tell all the people, say, homeschool your kids or find a source that you trust.
Yeah, the establishment of Department of Education at the federal level as a cabinet under Carter was a political payback that he did, and it's been nothing but a source of wasted money and evil ever since. And I would love to see that. I think Thomas Massey has introduced a one-line bill several times that just says abolish the Department of Education, and I would love to see that done, because they come like a drug pusher with money, and they say, "Hey, Kentucky, you're a poor state. Here's a bunch of money to buy underprivileged kids school lunch." And so Kentucky puts its hands out and said, "That's great," but turns out in order to do that, you have to endorse transgender ideology with these kids. So there's always a hook.
Yeah. This is absolutely crazy. Folks, if you want to make a difference, I would encourage you to make a positive difference. Vote according to strong Christian biblical worldview and support people like the newly elected Representative Hodgson. Folks, we'll be right back after this short break. Don't go anywhere. You'll want to hear what we've got to say. Welcome back, folks. We've spent our evening with Representative John Hodgson from eastern Jefferson County here in Kentucky. And we've talked about his journey into politics, sort of the awakening that he had, especially under Barack Obama when he was in the White House. We've heard him talk about his journey from so many years of being a UPS pilot and seeing the need of something to happen, and how he worked under Governor Matt Bevin here in Kentucky, and just felt the urge to see something happen. And he also made mention about how the news media hasn't been exactly truthful and honest. And I agree with that. That's one of the reasons why here at Firebase, we always like to say that we target the lies by firing for effect with God's truth, because there is truth. There's an absolute truth, and his name is Jesus. And friends, sometimes I've had people come up to me and they say, there's no such thing as an absolute truth. And I look at them and I say, is that true? Because their statement is one of absolute truth. We talked about the student gender card that the American Federation of Teachers have put out. John, as we wrap up here this evening, you've shared what you see as some of the big issues. And literally, I've got notes here saying, the U.S. Congress is pushing for a huge increase in taxes, hiring thousands of IRS agents, the so-called decreasing the deficit, but will actually increase everyone's debt. On a state level, what can we do? What can you do? What difference will you be able to make in the next few years?
When I get to Frankfurt every day, I'm going to be focused on protecting the constitutional liberties that we've got, and shrinking the government in every way, reducing regulation, reducing size, reducing headcount, reducing the scope of government in every possible way, and encouraging my colleagues to do the same. We have to starve the beast. If you ever read the book Leviathan, he described government as this giant monster made up of many little parts. We've got to starve the Leviathan, and we can't keep feeding it $12 and $13 billion a year in Kentucky and expect it to get smaller. It only gets larger. So protecting rights, protecting constitutional liberties, and shrinking the government in every possible way is what I want to do.
That's awesome.
In the Bevin administration, we actually shrunk the headcount of state government by 10%. We shrunk the budget by 10%, and nobody even noticed. So
yeah, wasn't the retirement funded? I think teachers' retirement and everything, and there's a lot of other that was funded when he left office.
They were all fully funded at the actuarially required contribution, and a little bit more every year for the first time in decades, I believe. He was the first governor and the first legislature who did that. The Republican legislature has continued that trend. So the retirement plans have kind of bottomed out and are just starting to eke up into survival mode, but they're still horribly, horribly underfunded. We've got somewhere around $60 billion in unfunded liabilities.
Well, the Bashir, I think the Bashir administration on day one just sort of gutted that retirement and put it towards the abortion industry at the time. But you don't hear that. You don't hear how the Bevin administration did a lot of really great things financially and fiscally speaking for Kentucky.
No, you don't hear it at all. And that's people are headline readers. They don't even read the news story, which is slanted enough, but the headline can be not just slanted, but false. And people read the headline, they form an impression, and they go about their day. They never read through the details of the news story and then go one more level to the underlying document, the video, whatever it is that proves the news story. And if they did, they would realize that the headline compared to reality is a falsehood in many cases. And it's misleading the public, and people have the wrong impression.
John, I am so glad that you're on the show this evening, but I'm even more so glad for the people of Kentucky that you chose to run for office. And if you can give 10 seconds, say, here's what I want people to say about John Hodgson.
What I want people to say is that I always stood for faith, family, and freedom in that order. And those are my core values. That's what animates every day of my life. So
Awesome. Well, we're going to have contact information and website on the screen for our audience to take a look at. Friends, we have spent our evening here with a man that not only talked about what needed to be done, he decided that something needed to be done. And you know what it was? He was the one who decided to run for office. Perhaps you'll do the same. We look forward to seeing you again right here next time on Firebase. Thanks for watching this most recent episode. Click below the like button, provide any comments that you like. Also, we will get back to you as soon as we can after you write to us at P.O. Box 39, Perry Park, Kentucky, 40363. Also, let us know if you like really good coffee, and we'll send that out to you as soon as we possibly can. What's the name of the coffee? Firebase.